Hey and welcome to the Simply Create Business Podcast. These episodes focus on businesses based in the London and Essex area. We are bringing you their stories, the journey, and a great insight into them as people and their businesses. In each episode, we explore where it all started, where they are now, and what's next. Another exciting episode in store. This time, not just with one, but with two guests, Shanil and Rael. They've worked with each other on Nozzle, a platform to help Amazon sellers through AI, and now are working together at MediaGamma, an AI consultancy business. So, let's get to know a little more and jump straight into the quickfire questions. We're going to jump straight in. So if Shanil, you can always answer first, and Rael, you can always answer second. That will just give you a little bit more formality.
Okay.
So here we go, quickfire question. Are Jaffa cakes a biscuit or a cake?
Cake.
Biscuit.
Takeaway or restaurant?
Restaurant.
Increasingly takeaway.
Instagram or Snapchat?
Oh, Instagram, definitely.
Neither for me, literally.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Coffee, absolutely. It's the first one we've agreed on.
Yeah.
PC or Mac?
Mac. I know what he's going to say.
It's Mac, but yeah, probably next one is going to go. I like being contrarian. It's cool to be Mac. I'm going to go PC in the future.
Okay. Autumn or spring?
What's that, sorry?
Autumn or spring?
Spring.
Autumn.
Music while you work or silence?
Music while I work, but depending on what sort of music. So concentration beats and stuff like that is good.
Okay.
Yeah, silent for me, I get way too distracted.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Tell the future.
Teleportation.
Nice. One thing you would definitely take to a desert island?
Water.
That's very practical. I was going to say my favorite album, which is a King Crimson disc, which I can listen to for the rest of my life.
Excellent. We're coming to that question soon. So, morning person or night person?
Ooh. Morning.
Night, no doubt.
Peanut butter, crunchy or smooth?
Crunchy.
Crunchy. That's only the second one I think we've agreed on.
Cats or dogs?
Oh, dogs.
Yeah, dogs. There you go. Absolutely.
Third one.
Night in or night out?
Now I think I'm more of a night in person.
As well.
Okay. And what's your favorite sport?
Football.
Yeah, football.
Teams?
Liverpool.
Man United.
Oh.
There we go. The rival, and there's the rivalry. I don't need. And lastly, favorite album, past or present?
Ooh, it's a hard one for me. Can I go second on this?
Yep.
Yeah, sure. So mine's very obscure, but it is an English band at least, called King Crimson, a prog rock band from the early 80s, an album called Discipline.
Nice. I've never heard of it. I apologize, but yeah.
No worries. Most people haven't.
I don't have a favorite album, but I'll probably have a favorite artist. Does that count? So I'll probably say more towards sort of Drake. It's my favorite artist right now.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for the quickfire questions. Still no one really knows who you are. So the first thing we're going to do is ask about who you are, what you like to do, what your hobbies are, how you met, I suppose. That's a good one. And yeah, so over to you two just to give us some background on yourselves, please. So Shanil, do you want to?
Yeah, so I'll go first because it kind of leads nicely into how I know Rael. So for me, my name is Shanil Beekarry. I was born in Mauritius. I moved to UK when I was around 9 years old. So from there, I went to study engineering at university, electrical and electronic. Then I transitioned into, I started working as a sales engineer. During that time, I started my own business, which was sort of like my own Amazon business, so where I was sort of bringing product from sort of China and branding it and selling on Amazon. And I had another type of business on Amazon, which was wholesaling as well. So that kind of grew pretty good. Within the first 12 months, we reached sort of six figure, which allowed me to sort of quit my job and sort of like go with this full time. Hired a couple of people that was working with me remotely. Then it was during sort of 4 or 5 months ago where I felt that because everyone was working so remotely, I wasn't growing enough as a person, and I wanted to grow basically. It's good to make the money, but I want to grow as a person, and this is where I kind of decided to maybe the best thing is to use the skill set that I've learned over the years, especially in the Amazon marketplace as such a growing industry right now, to really use that and work for a startup. And this is how I came across MediaGamma / Nozzle. That's how I met Rael basically. And the first time I heard about the company and the whole ethos and the whole belief system, I just was like amazed by it, and I decided to, join the team. It's been around sort of just over 1 month now. My very first week, I got to go to, I don't know, not a lot of people can say this, Vegas and Chicago for a conference, which was amazing. Yeah, I was just so grateful to be able to go. And yeah, this is how I met Rael. And from there, we've been sort of working together to really, build Nozzle, which I think Rael will go more in detail. So yeah, this is how my journey so far.
Rael, I also want to go to Las Vegas and Chicago. So any other trips coming up, let me know. Yeah.
Not bad, right? Not bad.
Yeah, over to you, Rael.
Cool. So I'm Rael. As I guess some people would know by my accent, I'm South African. So spent, I think, the first 23 or so years of my life in South Africa. My background's actually finance and economics. So I studied in South Africa, did an undergrad in those disciplines, and worked first couple of jobs in very financy things, kind of more banking roles and private equity roles. Came to the UK in 2010 to study a master's in finance, which I did, and then kind of realized I studied the wrong thing and wanted to get out of finance altogether, as you do. So in 2011, when I graduated, it was European sovereign debt crisis, just a pretty bad time to look for any type of finance jobs in the UK or in Europe. It wasn't a question of, are you going to get your dream finance job, but like, it's your fourth choice subcategory finance job or something like that. So, I kind of called it quits. I went back to South Africa for around 18 months and got involved in a mobile telco startup. But after 18 months, returned to the UK. And, really, after getting the taste of what sort of, startups are like, very, day zero sort of stuff, very much wanted to start something here back in London. And came across, so my background is in finance, but I came across online advertising and trying to understand how online ads are bought and sold. And it turns out you essentially have computer algorithms buying and selling ad space in real time, right? And coming from a finance world, thinking, well, finance has kind of been doing similar stuff for 20 odd years. These industries have not really overlapped. Is there something that the finance world can offer the advertising world, or vice versa even? So I was kind of looking around into this area. Couldn't really find much on Google, but eventually came across a whole body of research coming out of University College London's computer science department, UCL's comp sci department. So I got in contact with who would then become co-founded MediaGamma with Dr. Jun Wang. And yeah, I mean, it's just, as I said, there's 5-7 years worth of applying financial techniques to online advertising, and from a computer science angle, right? Yeah. And I mean, I'm kind of technical, but obviously nowhere on that that sort of level. So we decided to co-found MediaGamma. So this is about 2000 and late 15, somewhere around there, with the view to commercialize a lot of the research that have been coming out of the university. So we spun out MediaGamma from the university. So UCL put in some money as a shareholder in the business. And I guess fast forward a little bit to where we are today, there are kind of two areas where MediaGamma would operate. One is very, very focused on AI and machine learning, but more of a kind of consultancy practice. So this is working with companies to understand their business problems and whether AI and machine learning can actually help solve them, and to help them through that journey. Understand what data sets they have, demystify a lot of AI and machine learning, and these words and acronyms are all over the place, but really trying to understand them is quite tough. And so we would prove the value. We would do a project to prove the value of machine learning, and if they want to transition to kind of doing this sort of stuff in house, we can do that as well. But what Shanil was referring to is Nozzle, so that's kind of much newer. That's the product side of what we're doing. Okay. And that's very much focused on Amazon, helping brands essentially win on Amazon. So leveraging the machine learning expertise we have and the data that you can get from Amazon to advertise your products, manage listings, and everything that goes with managing your brand's presence on Amazon.
Okay, yeah, that all makes sense. I mean, for anybody listening, probably a bit of a whistle-stop tour for what you kind of both do and how you're getting involved, but that's great. What about, just again, for the personal side for the both of you, hobbies? What do you do outside of work? I know work takes up a lot of time. A lot of people invest in that. When you're working on your own business and your own passions and goals, you often invest a lot more time in than people appreciate. But what do you do to relax, to escape from it?
So for me, like my passion itself is the whole online space. So it's like I don't feel like it's working, but what I do outside my time is I love to travel. I love going to different restaurants, and I used to play football a lot, but however, I had a torn my ACL ligament not long ago, so I'm still recovering from that.
Okay.
So in my spare time, I do travel a lot, go to a restaurant, but I do work out an awful lot. So 5 times a week, that's my getaway to just get all the frustration out and all the the energy out.
I envy you, actually.
What you say?
I envy you. I wish I could have that discipline.
Yes, but don't worry.
Cool. So from my side, my life changed fundamentally about 5 months ago. We had our first child with my wife, so Gabriel.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. She's 5 months old, and so any spare time I have is pretty much all focused on that. But as I alluded to earlier, kind of obscure music taste. So music is always a huge part of my life.
Yes.
My brothers studied music and was a musician and all these sort of things. So I very much grew up with all of that. Since coming to the UK and before my baby boy was born, I was averaging about 20 to 25 live shows a year.
Wow.
All in around London, yeah. So I mean, it's just the live music scene and it's just amazing. Growing up in South Africa, you'd have a love for all these sort of bands and what's going on, but they wouldn't really come to South Africa. So kind of trying to make up for lost time, I guess, in the last few years. So
amazing.
And increasingly even going into music production and all that sort of stuff. And there's some amazing YouTube channels and all that. So that's a big chunk.
Great.
Wow.
Great. It's all, again, I always like to try and open that up a little bit just so people can understand it's not all work, although a lot of it is work. And when you love and care about what you do, you're happy to do it. But also there is always this other side to people that, people cannot see or forget.
And it's really important to have that as well. And I think but maybe in some circles kind of frowned upon that if you're not 100% focused on work. But I think it just allows you, it's important to kind of take a break or direct some of that focus as a hobby kind of, elsewhere, and it allows you to get, perspective when you kind of reapproach the problems in your business, right?
Definitely. And obviously the work-life balance stuff that obviously is kind of cropping up more and more. So people do need to.
I think as well as, it's sort of like inspire, kind of rebuild your creativity, because if you're working every time and you're kind of burning out, so if you're not taking a break off, you kind of, you're not going to be as creative as you can be when you take a break and do something that you really love.
Amazing. It's like I paid you to say that, because I'm going to segue straight into a creativity question, because my company's called Simply Create, and we kind of harness the value of creativity within business. So my question to you both is, how important do you think creativity is in business?
I think it's very, very, very important. At the end of the day, if you're not, creating something unique or something that's adding value, in the world, then it's just not going to be sustaining, isn't it? So I think it's a very, very big factor, creativity, and having the right people on board that are thinking, 10 years down the line, what could be the problem and how you can come back here and resolve that problem, and just, foreseeing the future basically, and creating things that's not out there.
Okay.
I think it's very big thing.
Creativity is an interesting one. I mean, clearly everyone kind of consensus view is creativity is fundamentally important, and I would agree with that. But I think some of the kind of other definitions of some of the stuff kind of gets lost along the way, which is, creativity is almost viewed as separate from being like analytical, and I think they're kind of the same thing, right? It's problem solving is problem solving, and pretty much necessitates creative thinking to do that. And I think also it kind of has this kind of image of I don't know, these kind of creative geniuses that operate in a vacuum and eureka moments and things like that. And it's not, right? I mean, creativity is not going to be, it's not going to work out unless there's an environment for that. So, that element I think is completely overlooked. Is how is it that people can be creative? It's most often than not working in isolation and having an environment where people can, I guess, disagree and and then ultimately come to an agreement, or even if they don't, it still kind of sparks other things. So I just think focusing on kind of the environment is an often overlooked factor, which necessitates team and the kind of rules of engagement to do that. And the other thing about creativity is that I wonder whether it's kind of a proxy for other things as well in terms of attributes. So like curiosity, I think is that might be more of the, like, curious people tend to be creative, but not all creative people are curious or something, right? So I don't know where, it might be curiosity is the thing to focus on rather than just sort of creativity, so to speak.
Yeah, I think there's three sections, and I think you've touched on them all. And I agree with the kind of the third one is people assume creativity is kind of something we've talked about already, which is like being an artist, like music or painter or a dancer. That's creative.
Yeah.
Then you've got people that are apparently creative, like, oh, I'm not a creative person. And then, like you said, you've got the other bit, which actually creative is a lot more of a skill that is open to collaboration, is open to different forms of, like you said, if someone can read numbers, that can be just as creative as someone who can, look at and see what, an advertising campaign looks like. They're both creative. They're just using different parts of that skill. And actually, when numbers and a look can come together and fuse together, that's where you can really explore creativity.
Yeah, and I mean, we can go, I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole, but people also think that, machine learning and AI and creativity are the two ends will never meet. And there's incredibly interesting work going on, either within sort of fine arts, painting and things like that, or even in music around algorithms essentially doing that. And so, yeah, just a really good, example of these
it's
two.
It's interesting you say that, because one of my like key statements that the company's built on is that creativity will be the most sought after skill of the future. That's kind of what I base it on. Now, that isn't to say that creativity will be the only thing left, because still AI and machinery will get there. I just believe it will be one of the last things it gets to, because obviously the stimulation it needs to generate is slightly different. But yeah, 100%, definitely. So again, nice that you even brought that up. It's like I said, it's like I spoke to you guys before, but I think everybody who's listening, this is the first time I'm speaking to both Shanil and Rael. So, okay, so going back to business, bringing it back in a bit. So it seems like a bit of a jump around, but we've got to the point where you've kind of both set up and you've got to the point where you are now in your businesses, which is great. But for anybody listening, have you got to a point before now where you thought, can't do this, or I don't want to do this anymore, or you've thought about quitting, or you've thought about it's not for you, or you thought that the mountain's too high to climb? If you have thought of that, how did you overcome it? And if you haven't thought of that, why do you think that is? So again, Shanil, back to you.
Yeah, so it was at the very early stage of so my first startup was actually at university when I was sort of 21. I started an app company that connects people through real-time interests. So I started it with a partner of mine, and we kind of grew the team into 5. It was after a year where basically what happened was everyone kind of turned around and said, look, we're going to start our own thing. And basically, yeah, we want you out of the company, because I'm not too sure what it was. So from there, it was just like, it kind of hurt a little bit, and didn't know what to do, and working on this business for a year. And I was at university. I had big hopes for it, going. So after that, it just I kind of took some time off and just to reflect on things, and just to know that it's not going to break me or whatever. So I took this as a fire and a fuel to really go on to the next chapter of my life. This is where I started my Amazon business. It wasn't so easy at the start. Ordered the wrong stock, calculated the wrong profit margin, and it was just thing was going upside down. But it just took a bit of determination and really learning from your own mistakes that okay, this is not going right, why it's not going right, and really breaking it down. And from there, once I start applying these mistakes and working on them, things starting to work perfectly fine. So it's never going to be perfect. It's not going to be a straight road. So, but it's about not just being determined. A lot of people say be determined and stuff like that, but it's about learning from your mistakes and reflect on them and just moving forward.
Yep.
Yeah, on my side, I think it's absolutely a question you have to be asking yourself every single day, right? Is this mountain too high? Is it insurmountable? All those sort of things. And if the answer is, if there is some doubt there, then you need to investigate that. And so that's absolutely kind of an implicit question I'll be asking myself every day. However, I do think, some of the core attributes, I've touched on one, which is for me, curiosity. The other one is determination. I think those two attributes are just so key for, I guess, a lot of things in life in general, but particularly starting companies. So, I mean, I guess I personally haven't, been in a situation where I'm thinking, it's all kind of too much or it's too tough with MediaGamma. But I think part of the reason for that, though, is some of the kind of mitigation that goes in place. And so much of that is around the people that you surround yourself with, either in a professional context or in your personal life, right? So my wife or my family and everyone else that's around them, and having honest conversations around I guess expectations or how they can support you and how you can support them, all that kind of thing. And so much of the reason why you think that a lot of these hurdles are insurmountable might be because of the external pressure that's on you from others, people in your life. And so if you have these conversations in the beginning to I guess, set expectations. I'm very lucky. My wife comes from her father is an entrepreneur, and so she kind of gets what needs to be done, the sacrifices, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and all that sort of stuff. And so that just makes that decision for me when I wake up and say, is this mountain too high? It just alleviates so much of that pressure having that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, again, this question is kind of loaded a bit, is that the understanding is that potentially that when somebody is successful, and I put that in kind of inverted commas, whatever success looks like from the outside in, people assume that it's to do with, that it was overnight and it happened and it came there. And I'm just a little bit more like shedding the light on, there's a journey. Like I'm really early in my journey, even though I've been going for like 2 years nearly. I'm still really small. I'm still growing. There's only 2 of us. It's kind of along the way, but I also want to highlight that people have to go on that journey. They hit struggles, they hit walls. Yeah. They do think to themselves, is it for me? And eventually maybe one day it pays off, maybe, but there's no kind of guarantee in that. So it's just that question is just about highlighting.
I mean, the I guess uncomfortable fact in all of this is most of them don't work out, right? Like statistically, most don't, right? And that's what you're up against from kind of day one. And in a professional sense, the mentoring aspect I think is massive, right? And finding somebody who I guess has either maybe been through similar things, but doesn't, I guess, have to be, but just mentoring and giving you, telling you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And I think that makes a world of difference. Like seeking that out right in the beginning is crucial for managing that.
Okay, so moving on slightly to kind of more present day stuff, the situation that you're in now. Can you tell anybody listening with something that you're struggling with right now? That could be personally, if you want to go there, or within your business, something that you're looking for or could do with help with, or a challenge that you're facing. Again, this is semi-loaded question that if it appears that you say something that somebody listening to might be able to help with, there might be a way of connecting the dots there. So floor's yours.
Yeah, so in terms for right now for me is basically just a very good question. So I feel like with Nozzle at the moment, we are very focused on what we're doing, but there's a couple of uncertainties about how can we prioritize certain features in our product in the first phase of launching the product. So right now it's about sort of like identifying these features, and basically we're very restricted with data set that we can pull to test in our software. We're kind of relying on other sort of people to help us with that. So this is kind of a bit of a struggle right now, and I don't know how much I can say because there's some obviously confidential stuff that I can't disclose.
Don't get yourself
so for us, it's a certain data set that we need to get access to that we can't right now, and so anyone that's in the Amazon space that can sort of like connect with us, that'd be great.
Cool. That sounds like a good, and I hope somebody who does listen can get in touch. So.
Yeah, for me, I guess on a personal level, it's more about time management. So, I mean, the things that I need to think about are, broadly speaking, short and long-term stuff. So there's day-to-day stuff operationally. Let's close the sale. Let's get X, Y, Z over the line. Very like digging deep into kind of the data to see what's going on. But then there's kind of, all right, let's take a step back. Let's think about the strategic elements of this 6 months, 9 months, 3 years. And just being able to like context switch, because sometimes can be quite tough. And then you get off a sales call, then you're in a sort of interview because you're trying to recruit someone, and then you're dealing with sort of investor or fundraising stuff. And it's, and then so you're just switching time horizon, switching context, and how I should best be spending my time, right? Like that's always the big thing. Like what point is the long term planning stuff if the very short term doesn't get done, and that's material, right? Like so it's, that kind of stuff is look, I mean, I don't think there are any easy answers to that, and it might take me a lifetime to find the answer. But,
Good luck on that discovery. I'm sure if you find it, you can write a book, and that'll probably help everybody out anyway. Okay, great. Again, kind of switching the angle slightly. I'm kind of big on community, so I love the online space. I think online is great. I'm a massive advocate for social media and social good. So although it gets a lot of bad press, I think that used in the right way, social media and digital can really be great. But I also love community. So I love the fact that people can come together. So I got kind of a couple of questions in this community space, but how have you, or would you like to engage with your community through your business? Now that can be local people to people in your local area, or it could be your online community of business people. So
Sure. I can take that one first. So, I mean, for us, being the spin out of UCL is where we kind of see the most we can add in a kind of community sense, right? So it's maybe a little less geographic in a geographic sense for community, but yeah, I mean, contributing to kind of the research elements on AI, machine learning, internships, meetup groups. So we host a meetup group which is focused on machine learning and online advertising. And by its nature, actually, data science and computer science are amazingly collaborative. So pretty much most of the output is going to be in the public domain, right? So your code is available,
of course.
Data sets are available, and that's why one of the huge reasons why machine learning, particularly in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, has come on leaps and bounds, is because it is so open and collaborative. Someone makes a breakthrough, here's the code, here's the data set for someone else to go and do it and run with it, right? And so our contribution in that sense, whether it's academic papers, workshops, conferences, and meetup groups, we're absolutely involved in that.
Excellent.
Yeah, so for me, the way I see it is that we're very focused on really adding value and using the data set that we know and provide a unique value set from the datas. Really, we want to sort of engage through our blog articles and really one a key thing is how we can use that and create a face-to-face engagement with our community and hosting events, networking events that we can host, that we can sort of like, at the end of the day, it's all about adding value. That's what we want to do for our community. So really engaging with our community through LinkedIn. That's one thing I'm focusing on right now is creating videos on LinkedIn to really and yeah, from there just invite them down and have a sort of like networking events and engage them through that way.
Great. And for both of you, whatever kind of platform you want to use right now, just before we flip the kind of question, where can people find you if they want to engage with you? So what platforms, what are your handles? Please use this time to definitely advertise and put your name out there.
Yeah, sure. Shanil, you can go first.
Yeah, so for me, I've got sort of 2 platforms. So the first one is how we connected, Instagram, so which is Shanil B_7. This is where anyone wants to get in touch with me, just DM me, or LinkedIn, Shanil Beekarry. So again, this is another way you can get in touch with me.
Excellent.
Yeah, so in my personal capacity, definitely LinkedIn is the way to go. So that's LinkedIn or email, I'd say. So that's Rael Cline, Rael Cline. And if it's my email, then at MediaGamma.com. On the Nozzle side, we've got a separate page, Nozzle, on LinkedIn. So definitely anything sort of Amazon related would be the Nozzle side. If it's general, machine learning, AI, and any of that sort of stuff, then just absolutely ping me LinkedIn or email.
Great. I love to give that opportunity for people to do that, because it's definitely the right space in which, again, I'm trying to build community and all that kind of stuff, to actually for people to give their contact details. So flipping the question slightly, because I don't think it should be one way, how can the community, industry or local and personal, help you? What can they do to help you as a business grow, develop, be better, improve, whatever?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can speak from kind of the Nozzle side and the Amazon side, and maybe one or two things in a personal capacity. So on the Nozzle side, we clearly have, in terms of building the product and the roadmap, a committed roadmap that's probably a few months out. But really the other stuff is based on the feedback we're getting, right, and how things change. And so anyone who does have quite a good knowledge on selling stuff on Amazon, I would love to understand your challenges, your strategic or operational challenges, to help shape our roadmap. So absolutely reach out so we can have a call or a coffee or whatever it is. Just more kind of discovery type stuff on my side, so I can just figure out where the pain points are, and how we can help solve them.
Yeah, it'll be pretty much exactly what Rael said. It's just help us validate what we're doing, and to see what to prioritize, what not to prioritize, and exactly to hit the pain point. And it's just at the end of the day, it's about using our community to help us shape the product to what they want it to be, not to what we want it, but we want to again add value and make people use the product. So it's about them more than about us.
Right.
Exactly.
Have you had the most or a most successful way in which you've advertised your business? So a way in which you've gone about and said, this has really worked for us. And again, I've had actually a variety of answers for this, not always assuming that it's one way. So
So I have a kind of strange answer to that, which is the vast majority of what we've done so far has either been word of mouth or just inbound. And the funny part about the inbound is, if you go to the MediaGamma website, you will see a bunch of, they're not even white papers. I mean, these are like scientific papers from our data scientists, right? These are published in journals and all that kind of stuff. And so there's more kind of symbols than words in these papers, right? Yeah. But in a amazing way, they've actually acted as content marketing ultimately. And so we often get people who read the papers will reach out to us and say, yeah, this is super interesting. Can we have a chat? How can you help us? Or that kind of thing, which has led to customer acquisition. So just putting there's really no marketing spin. I'm dead serious. It's just like an actual scientific paper that goes on. There's a whole bunch of them out there, and that's actually resulted in the inbound stuff. Is a weird content marketing kind of thing.
Nice.
So so me, it's kind of similar. So when I started my sort of Amazon business, there was another side of the business where we were selling apparel. So one thing is we kind of created a marketing strategy for Instagram, where the primary focus was adding a lot of motivational quote and a lot of like value adding tips on a day-to-day life. So we were posting a lot of these. Then after a couple of weeks down the line, we started getting some huge orders from the States and different parts of the world. So when I started messaging some of these clientele I was ordering from us, I asked them, thank you for your order. Why would you, obviously, what was the purpose behind placing your order? But like, we love what you stand for and what you're posting, and not hard selling, but really posting something that resonates with their emotion and they feel connected to that brand. And they said, this is why, I'm buying, because I feel the brand. I feel, you're talking to me directly. So one thing is like, when I was posting stuff, it was all about creating that emotional connection with the brand and the audience, rather than just hard selling. So that surprised me. Yeah.
Both of those are kind of softer approaches as well, like you said, not hard in stuff. So and both in different ways, providing some kind of value, whether an emotional connection or, like you said, actual scientific paper that someone reads. It's like,
exactly.
I need that. Thanks. Let me have a conversation with these people more. So
great. And also we kind of worked this out afterwards, which is the best engagements we have are when there are technical people at our customers, right? Like if there's no technical person, it's actually quite hard to implement the sort of stuff we're doing. And so there's kind of a good pre-qualification there that if someone has actually read and understood their paper and reaching out, they're going to be exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah. That makes sense. Some kind of advice, the value part, which I suppose is the link to this, is anybody starting out, whether it be in business or in your field or in your specialism, whatever that might be, have you got something, a bit of advice you would give them to say they're starting, maybe they're brand new out of school, out of college, uni, whatever it might be, looking for a job to get in that sector because they're interested. What advice would you give them to get them underway, as practical as you can, obviously?
Yeah. So for me is a lot of people, let's say, for example, in Amazon world, a lot of people start with a product, then go down towards the audience side. So what I will advise people to do, what I would do is start exactly who you're serving, really target a niche market. Then from there, work it backwards. What product fit that demographics of who I want to target? This, I think, is a far more effective approach, because then you're more laser focused towards one type of audience. Then when it comes to your content marketing and your whole strategy, it'll be so much easier because you know who you're speaking to, right? And you know your product is in line with that audience. So I feel like understanding your audience first and really knowing who they are, the pain point, their struggles, what they want to achieve, and so on, will allow you to create better connections with your audience and allow you to sort of sell at the back of that.
Nice.
I guess mine's more general advice, but still practical. So if you're just starting out, as I said, my background's actually in finance, and here I am working, in an organization that's very heavy in AI and machine learning. I'm not a computer scientist. I'm not a software engineer, and yet here I am doing that, right? So So it's a long way of me saying that, I don't think it's such a prerequisite to have the hard skills in the area you're looking to work in, right? It's more about, if you're going to start a business, people invest in teams, right, not individuals. And so if you find complementary skill sets, someone, in my case, someone who's more technical to take care of that side, I think that's what matters more. And also, I think it matters more about your attitude, right? I've said it a few times already, which is it's more about grit and determination and curiosity than the other stuff. If you have those attributes, you can learn a lot of the other things. Like I can talk, to a reasonable level, I guess, on AI now, but I'm not a computer scientist. But it's because of those attributes that it's able to happen. So don't get put off and say like, well, I've missed the boat because I didn't study it or something like that. That's absolutely not the case. And I guess related to that is the mental side as well, right? Someone that can give you really good advice early on can be absolute game-changing or life-changing, right? So I think seeking out those sorts of people, and also don't underestimate other people's willingness to mentor. If they see somebody that is, good attitude, committed, and all that sort of stuff, then they typically reciprocate, right?
Yeah. And I hope both of the advice that you've just given, sorry, it's obviously warm and the ice cream van's here. Can't help that, I'm afraid. But both of the advice you've given will hopefully, if somebody listens to it, they'll be able to turn around and use that advice to step them there. And obviously, that's what, like I said, sourcing good advice is always helpful. So the next 12 to 18 months, that's what we're going to talk about, the future, as we like to do. So what are you both excited about? And I'm sure this will be different, but you're both excited about the most for the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I can go first on this one. So for me, very, very much on the kind of the Amazon on the product side is building that out, right? So as we've spoken about kind of the challenges, how do we prioritize all that sort of stuff? And in a way, it's kind of scary, but it's super exciting. And for me, just seeing the development of Nozzle's product roadmap, we're doing a fundraising round now as well, seeing that come together, growing the team, making those priority calls on the product. Is kind of why you wake up in the morning, right? It's amazing. So I'm super excited about seeing Nozzle's product roadmap and growth on Amazon.
Great. I'll keep it
up.
Well.
Yeah, in terms of that is obviously joining at a very early stage of Nozzle. It's just so exciting to see, because what we're doing is so unique and so again, something different what other people are not doing. So it would be great to see how our customer interact with the software and how they see the software the way we see it, and it's just very exciting to be at this early stage and growing along with Nozzle like that. So that's what I'm excited to. And another thing is more personal is travel around a bit more and seeing a bit different countries, cultures, food.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm with my missus. So yeah.
Seeing more of the world sounds good. What do you think is the most unique thing about your business? What sets you
Yeah, sure. So ultimately, it comes down to people, right? And it really does. And so for us, it's the combination of deep machine learning expertise with the Amazon expertise, and that's absolutely what makes it. That's how it translates into company culture, into the products, into everything that we do, right? So it absolutely comes down to that.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, so because like what I said, like you get a lot of companies that are saying they do AI where they're not really doing AI, but with us is we actually got the professors and professionals both on the Amazon side and the AI side on board, coming together, working on this product to really deliver it to the market. This is what's really unique is about us. So we got expertise to really deliver it and the skill set.
Nice. And again, probably the last question, and it comes about the unique thing is, again, trying to help people that are starting out or struggling along the way is, what do you think somebody could do, for example, to stand out? So if they were going to apply for a job for Nozzle or to work with you or whatever, what do you think they could do to stand out and be seen so that you took them seriously?
So from my side, this is kind of a recurring theme here. I'm more interested in the soft skills than the hard skills. So clearly, if you want to become a machine learning computer scientist sort of person, there's definitely a base skill set you need in order to do that. But for pretty much every other part of what we're doing on Nozzle, that's sales, marketing, account management, product stuff, whatever, right? There's a whole bunch of roles to fulfill there. Then it comes down to attitude and personal attributes, right? Can this person problem solve, and are they good to work around? How do they work in teams, and all that sort of stuff? And so it's actually ultimately comes down to soft skills. And if you can bring that out in, I guess in the first instance in a CV sense, but secondly certainly when we're chatting, I guess in an interview situation, those are absolutely the attributes I'm always testing for, because most of the other things can be learned, right? And if you've got those core attributes, you kind of set up to learn quickly anyway, and you can take feedback in a good way, and you can give feedback in a meaningful way, and yeah, it's soft skills.
I was looking for you to kind of pinpoint the platform, and you mentioned jumping off the page of a CV or bringing that to life the most or strongest in an interview.
And when I say soft skills, you can still find a way to quantify them. It's not, everyone just can write something down where they say I've got these attributes, right? I mean, that's just like almost an SEO exercise.
Yeah.
What keywords do I need to put in my CV, right? So it's not about that. It's actually trying to bring out examples of quantify the results quantify the outcomes of having those attributes, where they made a difference. So as a result of being very, determined or curious, I managed to increase this by this much, or that kind of stuff.
No, it's true. And Shanil?
Oh yeah, building on top of what Rael said, which is I think very, very critical, is one thing we need to show the passion as well, because at the end of the day, working for a startup is not like your typical 9-to-5 job. So we actually sometimes all over the place, working different hours, crazy hours. So if you don't have the passion, at the end of the day, you won't really put in the time that you need to be, because the startup needs a bit more time to really deliver the results. So I think having a passion is very critical on top of the soft skills and the other skills that Rael mentioned. So I feel,
Great.
I guess as well as one other thing on the passion side. I mean, did I know that does it require having a passion for running advertising campaigns on Amazon? Like that's quite a niche passion. Do people really have a passion to do that sort of stuff? No, right? I mean, what we say by passion is you're building a product. You're in this, part of a team, and you want to see this through, right? It has potential, and you want the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you have a passion to kind of be in the trenches with people and make those decisions and contribute to all of that, and all the way to the outcome. So it's more about that than saying like, yeah, I've got this passion for running online ad campaigns or things like that.
They get and buy into the vision, which is the passion.
Correct.
Overall, they'll dig in and work, get hands dirty in everything because they believe in the bigger vision. So yeah, nice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, a chance for you two both now, because I've pinged loads of questions at you both and you've answered them greatly, so thank you very much for that for a start. But I always give the final question to my guests to ask me. So you've got a chance to ask me any question you want. It can be related. You can use it for your own research. You can use it to aid an insight of someone like me, or anything you want to ask me. Free for you to go for it. So yeah, and on this one we get 2 questions, one each. So I've really put myself under pressure now. So yeah, if you think of a question to ask me, fire it across, and then we'll kind of wrap up from there.
Cool. Shanil, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So how do you foresee your podcast or business growing in the next 12 months in terms of like where do you envision it being in the next 12 months from now?
So my podcast is really targeted towards Essex and London. So I'm not genuinely, obviously it's great when people listen from all over the world, that's great. But my main aim is to push it out into those 2 areas to highlight what's going on right under people's noses. So the push is really to drive people to listen to it and give feedback. That's the key bit, the feedback to it of who they would want, particular industries they're interested in, for me to go and source different people. Because at the minute, I'm sourcing lots of people that interest me, which is great. But at the same time, I would also like to source people that interest other people in case I'm, being too niche on my own interests. And the growth of that is I see that word of mouth has already been, it's doing pretty well. And because I've got both the online for YouTube to watch and the podcast element, I'm actually getting a really nice number of people for such an early podcast. So it's been going for, will be the 18th episode once a year. So it's not loads, but it's not none. And I'm really starting to see that growth, but also so that people start to help each other. So the whole bit about community and what you're looking for and struggles and that kind of stuff, that actually people start to see a return on someone sending them a message because they've listened to the podcast. That's the real value, I hope.
Cool. I think you kind of answered mine in a way, which was like, how do you measure your impact of what you're doing?
So one is I obviously have general data metrics that are reported back on my platforms for the podcast, but the podcast, I now have 2 actually, but is kind of a passion, but also links into what I do. So the other thing is the next thing I suppose is how do those relationships grow is the way I measure that. So do I stay in contact with these people? Do I end up helping them? Do they end up helping me? And again, the almost the full circle of feedback. Does somebody get in contact with you because they listen to the podcast, which is genuinely, if one person does, I've done something good, and I've dotted, and crossed some I's and dotted some T's. So that's probably the way I do it. I don't try to get caught up too much in viewers, and I find them very, vanity. Oh, great, 100 people listen. That's great. Yeah. But actually, the real value is if that one person connects, or those
100%. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
And with a podcast, I really think longevity is where it's going to be at. So although as an example, although I'm interviewing you now, it's so early, how interesting is it going to be in 10 years' time? If someone looks back at Nozzle, at Shanil, at you, finds something, and then looks back at this interview and goes, hang on a minute, that was good. So I believe in actually the future of this podcast.
It will be funny for us as well, saying, really? Did I say that? Did I believe that?
People got to be careful what they're saying now and of course. But that's the PR bit that people get caught up on. Thank you both. I know it was kind of planned along in advance, but meeting you both today has been great. I hope that I can stay in contact. First thing I'm going to go and do is look you both up on LinkedIn and connect with you that way, so I can see what you're doing and hopefully share some of that stuff. Thank you very much for your time. I know timing is always the thing that you were talking about earlier, Rael, what do you kind of balance? So thank you for this schedules. Much appreciated.
Absolutely, and thank you very much, and best of luck. And we'll certainly carry on the relationship.
Excellent.
Looking forward to it.
Lasting.
Just if you guys are sort of struggling anything in terms of business or Amazon related, just reach out to us. More than happy to help. We want to help. So any struggle out there, just reach out to us.
Totally echo Shanil's sentiments there. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.